This week's Coach of the Week, sponsored by Exquisite Irrigations and Landscaping, goes to Jared Wellman of the 5th and 6th grade girls Wildcats. At the beginning of the game, Jared Wellman left the game. He ran out, and when asked where he was going, he said, "I'm going to go pick up one of the players who could not get there because her grandmother was sick and she had no way to get to the game." That meant Jared left watching his two girls, his two daughters, to go pick up another player just to make sure she was at the game. Jared, this goes above and beyond your call to be a great coach. So congratulations. Thank you so much for your heart and for all you do for these kids. You are this week's Coach of the Week, sponsored by Exquisite Irrigations and Landscaping.
Our Lionheart Player of the Week for this week is Jace Irvin of the 3rd grade Rim Reapers. Jace has been in our league for a while, and I had the privilege of watching him score his first bucket of the season. And let me tell you, nobody struts the court after their first bucket like Jace Irvin. Jace is a great kid. He plays with complete emotion and heart, and he stands for everything that we want for our league. Jace, you're a fantastic player in our league. Congratulations on your first basket. We're so proud of you. You do everything the right way. We love you. Jace, for your efforts, you are our Lionheart Player of the Week.
All right, episode 59. Thanks for coming back and joining us. Today we've got another guest, and this guest is someone who's been on with us before, Tommy Foster. Thanks for being here, Tommy. We talked about people that have done really well in this podcast previously, and your name was at the top of the list, believe it or not.
I don't believe it.
He's like our resident smarty pants,
He
I feel
is,
like.
yeah.
And the most experienced.
When Tommy's here, we just kind of sit and listen. Yeah. But yeah, what kind of tidbits are we going to talk about today?
So, Tommy is always a learner. And so he went to a kids conference. It was back in the fall.
Back in the fall.
Mm-hmm. And Tommy always comes away with just quality nuggets. And so one of the nuggets that he shared with me was how, one of the speakers talked about the lie of rest. Now, when we think of rest, we think about it, as a really good thing. In my context, I work from a place of rest.
Yeah.
Rest is important. It fills you up so that you can go and fulfill, what's next, so that you can serve the kingdom a little longer. It's a filling up, if you will. But as Tommy will get into today, and as we will too, I think that we live in a little bit of a different culture that has a different meaning on rest. And so today we'll talk about the lie of rest and how some of our like the Gen X and the millennials are taking a different view on rest. And I would even say that they may be a little bit obsessive about rest. And we don't want to stop right there, like in what detriment that is to the kingdom at large.
Yeah.
And so Tommy, take it from there.
Yeah. So the conference, that particular speaker, that particular time slot was addressing the issue of, hey, we have a generation that is coming back to church in many ways, right? So we have families that are coming back. Children are now coming into our spaces with preschool and first, second, third, or whatever.
Yeah.
But in that moment, we don't necessarily have the volunteers to be able to care for and minister to, and most importantly, share who Jesus is with these children. And so there's lots of questions. Well, why is that, right? And we could immediately begin to label the parents, our 20, 30, and 40-year-olds. We can immediately begin to label them as to why they may not be willing to volunteer or serve. But what this speaker was getting at is maybe the labels we're placing on them, maybe that's not why they're not serving at the capacity we would like for them. Maybe it's they're being deceived. Maybe they're being lied to. Maybe they're being tricked. And so part of that led into that quote, this idea that that darkness is using anxiety, right, to diminish our leadership, our serving capacity, and causing us to crave rest, right? Maybe it's not about the parent needing rest, although they do. Maybe it's about the fact that them thinking that they need more rest than they really do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where that initial, I don't know if you want to read that quote.
Yeah, I'll read it. It says, the greatest lie the millennial and Gen Z generations have bought into is that the enemy has caused them to be riddled with anxiety, thus reducing their serving others capacity and causing them to obsess with rest. The enemy is implied to be the modern culture that promotes self-focus over service to others, leading to increased anxiety, which is on the rise, and an unhealthy obsession with personal rest and self-care. And so, there's a couple of buzzwords in there. Self-care is continually on the rise. We know that that anxiety numbers have skyrocketed, especially with the introduction of the cell phone and social media and things like that. And so yeah, it really is interesting. I appreciate the fact that you don't immediately go off and label them as being lazy or, it's just this generation,
Right.
if you will. But I do like the fact that they may be deceived. And so.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes more sense to say, okay, we've got, people. Well, let's back up for a second. I think everybody here at the table agrees that the most influential people in a child's life is the adult in the home, whether that's the parent, the guardian, the grandparent, whatever. I think we all agree the data backs it up.
Yeah.
That the most influential person in a child's life is the adult in the home, right?
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that, if we want to get the children, let's go after the adult in the home, right? Let's trick them, let's play them, let's lie to them, let's deceive them.
Talking about the enemy and not the church.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it would make sense that would be the target.
Yeah.
As opposed to just, like you said, we've got a lazy generation of parents, which I think is not true at all. I think they are hard at work. I just think that they find themselves overwhelmed often. In fact, I read a statistic recently, 85% of parents of elementary age children that were, that they asked the question, agreed that raising children was far more overwhelming than they ever imagined prior to having children. In other words, 8 out of 10 pretty much said, I didn't see this coming. I just didn't know it was this hard. And so if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
do you remember, and I'll ask this to you, Todd, as well. Do you remember being so overwhelmed when you had your 3 kids as littles and when you had yours at their little estate?
I don't remember, didn't mean it didn't happen. I don't remember feeling as overwhelmed as many of the parents that I talk to on a regular basis, because I'm talking to parents as a family pastor, but I'm also counseling families and adults and a lot of men, a lot of fathers one-on-one in counseling ministry. In fact, I had a father say this a while back. He said, Tommy, I feel like I'm never off the clock. And I said, tell me what that means. He said, from the moment I get up in the morning to, trying to, meet my wife's needs, meet my children's needs, and then going to work and then getting home and going straight to doing, taking care of family right up until I go to bed at night. He just, and I'm sure the moms feel the same.
Yeah.
Just feel like I don't remember feeling like I was never off the clock like that.
I don't think I would have worded it that way. I mean, that's just that's what you do when you have a family. I don't think I would have termed it in those words. I would have just said, like, this is my life. These are my responsibilities, and this is what, I don't know. I mean, it's almost like, is cleaning the kitchen fun? No, it's not. Is cleaning the house fun? No, it's not. But these are all things that God has given me. Do I like them? No, but they're responsibilities that you, in my opinion, that you get to tend to.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a matter of perspective as well.
Right.
What about you, Todd?
Yeah, I don't remember feeling that way. I think, well, for one, I had the benefit of having a wife who was Superwoman. Sometimes out of necessity because I wasn't as helpful as I should have been, but she was great. And also because my world really just shrunk at that time. When I had the kids at that age, they were so small that almost everything outside of our home didn't exist because we were so concentrated on making sure that everything was taken care of and, that we were putting family first. And so I think a lot of the anxieties that existed for me outside of the home just weren't there because there was so much to concentrate on in the home. So we just kind of circled the wagons, and I think a lot of parents do that. I think that you just kind of shut everything else off and you just focus on what's in front of you.
Yeah, is it safe to say that you're having to say no to other things?
Yeah,
because you're having to say yes.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you're not saying no, right? If you're still saying yes to things that you said to when you were single,
sure,
or when you didn't have kids,
yeah,
then you can find your schedule filled up really fast.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, you're having to, to juggle a whole lot more.
Well, and I think it underscores what your point is, because when we had the kids at that age, even with the church we were going to at the time, if you would have said, hey, you need to be in the 4-year-olds class every Sunday, that would have sent me over the edge because I am just worried about my family. And I do have the anxiety that's going on at home. And there is the work aspect of it too, that like I just got off of work at 6 a.m. and now, so I can, somewhat understand where the families are coming from, that, man, this is one more thing on my plate. If I have multiple kids that are young in the home, that volunteering is, man, that's a lot, because I've focused everything on my family and taking care of them. And oh, by the way, I have this full-time job thing too. And so I can kind of see where the anxiety would come into play.
And that goes back to the serving capacity, right? Now I feel like, I've got to get these kids to bed so I can rest, which I would say is necessary. I would say is healthy that you would recognize that. The problem is, and this, I don't want to jump ahead, but the problem is that the way we're resting is not resting the brain.
Yeah. The way that we're resting is jumping on our phone, and scrolling, the reels.
What do we do before that?
I mean, honestly, that's a great question. Maybe we watch TV.
Yeah.
Which honestly is better than scrolling, because and I'm sure that you have research on this as well, but
of course he does.
Because the 15 seconds or 20 seconds of something different, like I'll sit there in an hour and probably go through about 75 reels.
Yeah.
And it's that short attention span that's only creating, I'm sure, what you have the research for.
Right.
Well, so, we'll go back in time here. My first child was born in 1999, right? So let's go back to the year 2000. I have a 1-year-old, and it's a Sunday night, and we just got home from church. And so we've got that 1-year-old, and we're watching America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah.
Because that's what came on Sunday night around that time, right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between my wife and I and our 1-year-old sitting and laughing and watching and interacting and engaging with each other. Oh, that was so funny, right? By the way, we don't need to go look at a lot of research to know the impact that laughter has on every part of our body, right? It's really, really good for us.
Yeah.
And so there's a big difference with that than me sitting over by myself, right? And my wife sitting over by herself and me scrolling, because what's happening is the brain activity. And this goes back to your research. I asked y'all earlier if you know what an fMRI was, right? So MRI, I think most of us know what that is, but we now have something that's called a functional, and I pulled up the definition here. It's a non-invasive brain scan that maps brain activity by detecting changes in blood flow, showing which areas are working during specific tasks. Watching a show and laughing and engaging is a different kind of task than me scrolling, because when I'm scrolling, I'm comparing, I'm contrasting. I'm also doing something different with what we call the executive function of my brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is where I'm doing things like problem solving, prioritizing, managing time, all these things. And so what happens is if I'm not doing that properly, then it's not getting the blood flow right. And then when I need to do it, guess what happens?
It's not there.
Yeah.
Anxiousness.
Yeah.
I mean, I would compare it to, okay, I'm going to basically not use my left arm for the next 30 days, right? I'm going to, do everything with my right arm, right? And so at the beginning of my 30-day, experiment is I grab a full gallon of milk with my right hand, I put it back, okay, no problem. I grab a full gallon of milk with my left hand, right? No problem, put it back, right? 30 days later, after not using this arm,
it atrophies. Yeah.
And guess what happens when I just do a daily routine of grabbing a gallon of milk? Guess what happens when I grab it with that left arm? I can't even hold a gallon of milk to pour. And that's what's happening is we're experiencing anxiety in daily tasks that we used to not experience anxiety.
Yeah.
So you're effectively saying that we are experiencing atrophy of our own brain.
Yeah. And that goes back to the brain rot, right? That's the term that's throwing out there now, is that it's not that there's a part of your brain that's actually rotting.
Yeah.
It's just the blood flow, just like the atrophy.
Right.
We're not using that part of the brain as much as we need to. And therefore, when we need to use that part of the brain, the brain sets off our threat response, which is our fight, flight, or freeze, our amygdala. It sets off a threat response.
Right.
And then now what happens? Right?
Yeah.
Well, now all of a sudden my adrenaline surges, right? My heart rate goes up, my eyes dilate, and now my brain thinks I'm in a threat response, when in reality, all I'm having to do is do something that's somewhat challenging when it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So then, even on top of that, like my wife's love language is quality time. That's her love language. And so if we have time together at home, and she's on her phone and I'm on my phone, there is anxiety that exists in her brain about, we have this time together and we're not utilizing it. And what's he looking at versus what I'm looking at, and that creates even more anxiety on top of what you're already talking about.
Yep. And then you play into the fact that there's, again, y'all know this already, there's an algorithm.
Yes.
Yeah. And it feeds you what you,
And so if you're scrolling and you're like, ooh, that part of my brain just, and then that part, and all of a sudden it comes back.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you scroll 78 posts or whatever it is, right? Your brain, and this is really interesting to me. I talk a lot about this with people, but the brain doesn't know the difference between pretend and real. Like when you watch a scary movie, it's not real. It's fake blood, but you still get the same physiological and psychological response.
Yeah.
Like I was watching a movie with my wife, several weeks ago, and something happened and she literally jumped, sitting in the living room. Right. So why does the brain make you jump if it knows it's fake?
Yeah.
Right. Well, the brain doesn't know.
Right.
So when you're scrolling and you see things or hear things, the brain doesn't even know that that's a screen. The brain thinks you have an actual person sitting in front of you saying those types of things that basically are getting a physiological and psychological response.
And that's so dangerous because that's where comparison comes in. And if the brain is not able to tell that it's not even real, or it's a screen and there's not a person in front of you, I think that just plays into the anxiety and the comparison that we're dealing with.
I have wives ask me, what is up with the video games with my husband? Like, why the video games? Because the brain doesn't know that you're playing Fortnite and you just opened a golden chest. The brain doesn't know that that's not real. Now, later on, your brain's going to reason through the fact that you didn't actually win real money or win real weapons. But what do you have? You've got grown men with headphones on engaged in a video game, and they're getting the same physiological and psychological response as if they actually were jumping out of a bus.
Right.
And so that's the problem with when we talk about, like, we think we're resting, but we're not. We're actually engaging in more activity, and that activity is actually stressful. And then when it's time to think about putting others first with regards to serving others, we're like, I just don't know if I have it.
Because you're already exhausted. You're exhausted from the scrolling and the comparison and all those things. your mind can't even think about serving others.
It's the same thing as if you said, okay, I'm going to go rest, and you went and got on a treadmill.
That's mind blowing to me if it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're going to have brain fatigue. By the way, we talk about anxiety, but let's talk about depression for a second. Depression is basically the brain going, hey, we can't stay up here. Like, this is too much. Anxious, restless. So the brain says, we're going to power down, right? And it powers down. And now people are like, I can't focus. I don't have any energy. Nothing motivates me. I just don't feel anything. Well, that's because your brain has said, we can't do this, because if we stay up here, like, things are going to get really bad. Right? We all know, everybody here, that there are physical consequences to that level of stress. Like, you will experience some really bad things. And we're not even talking about the spiritual aspect yet.
Yeah. Man, that's so, it's eye-opening to hear you say these things, because I think about, you're talking about the screens. I mean, we built a whole training piece on this as a profession in law enforcement, because we take guys in and we put them in front of a 180-degree screen, and we put them in scenarios. And when guys are done going through those scenarios, they come out, they're sweating, they're huffing and puffing.
Yeah.
They didn't move an inch.
Right.
They literally were interacting with people on a screen, but the brain doesn't differentiate, like you're saying. And so then you take that, what you're talking about, and you put them where the anxiety level from that moves to on the streets. And when you work nights for, 3 or 4 years, the anxiety level, you redline every single night, all the time, until you're so complete. And that's where you get the alcoholism that comes into play, and the divorces, and because the mind just says, I can't do it anymore. And the guys shut down when they get home. And so that's one profession of many, I'm sure it applies to nurses, doctors, teachers, all of it, and it just the toll that it takes on your mind from living in that stress all the time.
Yeah. Listen to this right here. When you scroll, your brain enters a dopamine-driven reward loop, releasing small bursts of this feel-good chemical for new content, activating ancient threat detection systems called doom scrolling, hijacking your attention with notifications, rewiring neural pathways to crave constant stimulation, reducing focus, increasing anxiety as it trains your brain for quick, shallow rewards over deep thinking, creating a powerful addiction cycle. Which means that your brain is, again, go back to the I'm watching funniest home videos, right, versus scrolling. My brain is doing a heavy load of work, and I just don't realize it.
And we think that we're resting.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, what did they always tell us when we were young? They were like, stop watching TV, your brain's going to run. And we've made it worse.
Yeah, exactly. How is that?
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know. Okay, so if we identify the problem, which I think we have, or a problem for sure, as a church, how do we combat that? What do we do?
Well, so let's bring in the spiritual. A lot of times when I'm doing counseling, I have the clinical and I have the pastoral, right? The spiritual part. Understand that the enemy understands all these things that's happening, right? And then they're leveraging them, right? So the way darkness works is it's going to take your past trauma, your past hurt, your past experiences. Darkness may not have necessarily caused any of that, right? And then it's going to take your current stressors, your current situation scenarios, and is going to leverage them towards your future.
Yeah.
And this is where we have the what ifs.
Right.
This is where we have the what if things don't get better? What if it continues? Whatever, right? And so this is darkness's game, is I'm going to take your past, your present, and I'm going to leverage them to your future. And so because darkness knows this, we're constantly, as Dr. Ed Lamance would say, we're constantly being played. We're constantly being tricked. We're constantly having that used against us, right? And so before we started, I talked about time travel. So what happens is when that happens, darkness is lying to us, right? And that causes time travel in the past. And now In the present, we're spending a lot of time thinking about what that person did to me, thinking about how hurt I was, how angry I was, whatever that is. But I'm also thinking about my future, right? What if I never get over this? What if things don't get better? What if this person does this to me again? And what that does to us is, and I've got it here in front of me, is what we call dopamine deficiency. Okay. So all of us have a dopamine window. Like, are you a morning person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I'm the opposite.
Mhm.
Like right around 7 or 8 p.m., my dopamine window opens up and I suddenly have this surge of energy. And it's not just energy, it's a desire to do something.
Yeah.
Right. So, I officiate sports,
Yeah.
right? Like, 7 o'clock kickoff, like right around 6 p.m., like all of a sudden I start like wide awake. Right. And then I get home at midnight and I'm still wide awake.
Mhm.
Part of that's because I chugged an energy drink, but part of that is, is because that's just and it's been like that a long time. I watched my 3 kids. You have this dopamine window, right? And so what happens is we're just doing so much time, spending so much time traveling, worrying about our past, worrying about our future, that what happens is our dopamine window gets smaller and smaller. And we get what's called dopamine deficiency, right? So this is right here. Dopamine deficiency means having low levels of this crucial neurotransmitter, leading to symptoms such as lack of motivation, fatigue, mood changes, depression, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, and loss of pleasure. Well, by the way, I can flip right over. Guess what serving others does?
Mm.
Guess what putting others first does?
It gives you a hit of dopamine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does the opposite.
That's far fulfilling than those small dopamine hits.
So we have to understand first that we are very much spiritual beings, body, mind, soul. It's all connected.
Mhm.
And because of that, darkness does not want us to find ourselves in a place that we're actually doing what Jesus said is the greatest commandment, to love the Lord our God with our heart, soul, mind, right, and strength.
Mhm.
There is something to this idea that when I love God by serving others, by caring for others, by having compassion and mercy and kindness, when we exhibit, right, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control, that our brain is created by God to create this chemical which basically enhances our whole life.
Mhm.
And if we go back to John 10:10, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly. That word life there in John 10:10 is the Greek word zoe. It's where we get the word zoology. In other words, what Jesus is talking about in John 10:10 is not just about the hereafter, an abundant life in heaven. It's here and now.
Yeah, for sure.
So God knows, right? By the way, Jesus says in the second commandment is just as great as the first, love your neighbor as yourself.
Mhm.
Well, when we love our neighbor as ourselves, we're going to spend a lot of time not just on self-care, but we're going to spend a lot of time on other care.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so there is something powerful, not just from, the Bible says so, right? But there is something powerful that happens in our brains when we choose to serve others. And so if darkness can trick us and deceive us to basically feeling like, I don't have it in me.
Yeah.
I don't have it in me to love on others, to care for others. It has a direct effect on our mental, emotional, and spiritual psyche, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. One of my buddies went through Alcoholics Anonymous, and one of the big things there is serve others.
Yeah.
I mean, it brings you out of that.
Yeah.
And it just resonates. And it's one of the things that he always talked about when he was feeling down. The first thing that he does is pick up the phone and call somebody and check on them to see how they're doing. And I think we've gotten away from that.
And so not only has that been great advice, we can go back thousands of years and see that in Proverbs, right? Even as early as Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, but now we have this thing called a functional MRI that actually
is proving it.
Proves it.
Yeah.
Scientifically says, wow, when you go and you do this for others, that part of your brain lights up.
Yeah.
Like the greatest lightning show you've ever seen in the sky.
Right.
And that's called the reward center of our brain.
Yeah.
And that blood flow, right? It's the same thing as if, we talked about atrophy.
Mhm.
Well, it's the opposite. If I start doing this
Yeah.
with
You're
milk
building
jugs,
it up.
Right.
it will build up.
Yeah.
And the more we do it, the more our brain loves it.
Yeah.
And that's why you spend a lot of time, you go for a run or
Mhm.
exercising and things like that, right? Well, what happens when you deprive yourself of that?
Yeah, when I don't work out, I can physically, but more mentally tell it. Mentally, I start to go downhill.
And so
Yeah.
what darkness does is darkness doesn't necessarily make you stop exercising. What darkness goes is,
You don't have time to work
she,
out.
she stopped exercising.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And now we're going to start planting. We're
Mhm.
being
So
lied
true.
to. Yeah.
Then she
Yeah.
gets irritable, and it's a whole.
Yeah, and Todd's like, leave right now. Go for a run. Like, have you exercised today? Oh no. Okay, go ahead now.
But by the
See you
way, y'all know this too, but we know what melatonin is.
Mhm.
Melatonin is what helps us rest.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know how melatonin is primarily produced in our brain? Movement.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be exercise.
Yeah.
Now you hear all the time, you need to be exercising at least 30
Mhm.
minutes.
Yeah.
What they're really saying is you need to move, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have older people who don't move much,
Mhm.
well, then they don't get much melatonin. And so they don't sleep much,
Yeah.
right? And there's reasons that they're not moving as much. But the point is that we've got to move.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I'm serving others, not only is it producing dopamine, not only is it producing serotonin, but it's also producing melatonin.
Yeah.
So when I do need to rest, I don't need this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm able to rest in a normal way.
Right.
By the way, do you know what oxytocin is? Probably know what Oxycontin is.
Yeah.
I mean, not
You're-
personally.
But you're going to love this. Oxytocin is what happens when we have physical touch.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, has plenty of that.
yeah. Well, a lot of times when you look up oxytocin, you look at those things. Oxytocin is what actually leads mothers to lactate to feed their babies. When a child is born, a woman's body, her brain, is flooded with oxytocin.
Mhm.
It's flooded because it's what makes us feel like we belong.
Mhm.
It's band of brothers kind of thing, right? And so what happens is the mother suddenly has this. By the way, you don't have to give birth to have oxytocin. You know why? Because when you picked up Taya for the first time, you were flooded with oxytocin.
Yeah.
And so it's that touch, right? And so, we've got to have that physical touch, and it could be, guys slap each other on the butt, right? I mean, that right there is a surge of oxytocin.
Yeah.
A hug, holding hands,
Right.
put your arm around, all of that we need. So this is part of what's happening too, is that darkness knows that all the advice that God's word gives and all the ways that he's created us to operate, he is leveraging using anxiety primarily against us. Dopamine says, I need to go and see how my friend is doing. Serotonin is, I'm now sitting with my friend and I feel a sense of connection. Oxytocin is, I just gave that friend a hug, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, this friend and I, we just went on a walk. So now I've got dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, melatonin. And so my life is full.
Yeah.
And we can take all that science and we can go back to scripture and we can say, okay, Jesus, I get it.
Mhm.
This is why it's so important, right? And when we realize that what the advice and the way God created us really does lead us to a fulfilling lives, like darkness does not like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're loving others and we're caring for others and we're praying for others and we're doing all these things that we know from technology even today that it just brightens our lives.
Yeah.
Have you all ever heard of the I think it's called the Finnish chicken experiment? Have you heard
No.
about this?
You might have told me this before.
Yeah.
actually.
I think it's either Finland or Sweden. It might be the Swedish chicken experiment. Have you heard about this?
No.
All right, really fast. So it is a lot more involved in this, but basically what they did is they had this group of chickens. They had two groups, right? And so they put this group of chickens. Okay, group A, we're going to put them into this container area, and it has a little thing over here. If they go and peck it, they get food, right?
Mhm.
So we all this is old type of experiments, right? So they gave them several days, right? By the end of several days, as soon as the chickens would go in one at a time, they'd immediately go, oh, if I pick that, I get a reward, and go straight to it.
Mhm.
Then they changed the experiment. They said, okay, this group A over here, every time they start to go for the reward, we're going to do something that causes stress. And every time this one goes over here to do the reward, we're going to allow not just one pellet to come out, but 2, 3, 5, 7 pellets to come out. So they put these chickens in group A, and as the chicken walked in and then saw it and started walking toward, they blasted a high whip, and it knocked the chicken over, right? Right. The chicken got up and started to go back towards it. They flashed this loud noise. All right. Within a week, all those chickens in part A, they would walk in, stop, and just sit down because of the stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
The other chickens, like they put them in and they would run to the reward and they'd pick it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Now that we get that, right?
Yeah.
But here's the fascinating part. They noticed that when these chickens that constantly had anxiety, that when they had, you're going to think I'm lying about this. You're going to have to look it up. When they had baby chickens, those baby chickens inherited that
No,
anxiety.
I don't think that you're lying.
They inherited that stress.
Yeah.
And the baby chickens were different than the other chickens. So it fed into their DNA.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, we get when we're pregnant, we probably shouldn't have wine because it might blah, blah, blah. No, it's way deeper than that. And darkness knows that. Darkness knows that. We can actually transmit or transfer parts of our life, not just, don't drink alcohol, don't have tobacco, but the way our experience is transfers even into our DNA, into our children. Yeah. So there's more going on here than just our serving capacity is lowered. It's much deeper and darker than that, because if we have a mom that's experiencing anxiety, it is going to affect the next generation, which, by the way, we know this. Once I had children, it really wasn't about me anymore. It was about my children. That's what darkness is really going after. And so as far as what the church can do, it's a big question. We need to help our families work through and process what they're feeling and what they're thinking in an environment where we can shed light on, this isn't just about you volunteering on Sunday morning. This is about your whole family and what God wants to do and desires to do, and how darkness is constantly countering that against us. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Good.
Yeah, I love that, because it puts it back to what's better for the family, but what's better for the family is what's better for the church. Like they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's not just, hey, come serve because we need X, Y, and Z. That is true, but come serve because really it's going to be a blessing to you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, there is generational rewards in serving, right? I'm a product of that. I came to this church when I was in 7th grade. My brother was 5 years older than me, and by the time he was 15, he'd run away from home. By the time he was 20, he was in prison. He's in prison as we talk right now. And in 7th grade, my aunt, my dad's sister, came to my mom. They were going to this church. Came to my mom and said, "You've got to get Tommy in church. We don't want this to happen to him." Right. Now, there's some things we could discuss, is that really the best way to approach blah, blah, blah. Well, it was for my aunt. And I came here and I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know what that looked like. But they had a youth softball team. And pretty much all of my approval and acceptance came through sports. I had my dad was absent. There was abuse in the home. I now know we call that a broken home. My parents eventually divorced, all these things. And so sports for me, it number one, it got me out of the house, away from my dad. But number two, it put me in a place where I got positive reinforcement. And so what happened was the youth pastor at the time, a guy by the name of Ed Lamance, said, "Hey, we have a youth softball team. You should come." I showed up out at Martin High School, where they had a big field then. Now it's a football field, and I got involved in the youth softball team, and then that led to me making what would have become my best friend for life, and still is, a guy by the name of David Metter, and basically connected there, and then all of a sudden, came to a place in my life where I knew Jesus. And then I had another guy that was the junior high minister, a guy by the name of David Jenkins, who started discipling me. And so that right there, that's what the church needs to be doing. It's not anything new or different, like just the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Is we need to be investing in others. And by the way, if you are, you know, your serving capacity continues to diminish, and my craving for rest, which we really know is not rest, it's
scrolling.
It's shots of dopamine.
Yeah.
Then guess what? I'm missing out on these trophies of grace, right? I'm missing out on opportunities to invest in the next generation, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. So to tie this all up, the name of our podcast is Winning with the Home Team. And so, Tommy, if you were to give, you gave a ton of research and advice on helping families win at home. If you could tie it all up into one statement, how would you say, in regards to the lie of rest, how would you help families win?
Well, I think we all would agree that when we love others, care for others, listen to others, invest in others, sharpen others, all these things, it energizes us. It fulfills us. Not just from the idea of, again, anecdotal, oh, that's good advice, good counsel, but there literally is a design, the way our brain is wired. God created us to need this and want this. And by the way, what darkness wants is for you to be alone and isolated. Because when you are alone and isolated, he can do his worst. That's where the dark thoughts come in. That's where we tend to move towards self-medication. That's where we tend to begin to have just this loop of negative thoughts over and over. I'm not saying it's wrong to be alone. I think you can be alone in your prayer closet. You could be alone in creation and have incredibly intimate moments with God. But this idea of alone and isolated, and you can talk to all kinds of people. The worst thing we can do is isolate ourselves, right? Because that's when that's when we become dopamine deprived, we become serotonin deprived, we become oxytocin deprived, all these things. And guess what a lot of our families are doing? They come home and they isolate. And even the commercials, I'm always amazed. Here's an AT&T commercial for wireless internet, and the dad comes home from work and his daughter's listening to her, headphones. And then the wife is looking at a recipe online, and the son is playing a game, and he goes off to his room and says, I'm a good father.
Yeah.
Because I got AT&T wireless, and all my kids and our whole family is isolated. And now, so that's what I would say to families is we're being played.
Yeah.
We're being manipulated and lied to and deceived. And what we need to be obsessing about is, how can I spend time with Jesus so that I could spend time with my family, so that we as a family can go and spend time with others, right?
In relationship. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Man, some of that hits home.
It does.
Pretty
it really
hard.
does. Yeah, I probably need this podcast.
Yeah. Because next week, Tommy is going to dive into why my capacity for people is 3.5 minutes. No, but
it's going to take a psychologist.
Yeah. It does, though. It's, man, so much of what you said is so true. You were talking about, I know we're wrapping up here, but oxytocin alone, because a lot of people have that, physical touch is their love language, right? And that's not mine, but, when we would, as you mentioned kind of the brotherhood type thing, right? And when we would go and say we would run a warrant, and before you go into a house, as you stack up, the person behind you puts their hand on your shoulder. Now, the reason for that is for them to let you know, okay, I'm ready, go. But what I was taught is the ulterior is, hey, we're on the same team. I got you.
Yes.
And having that hand on my shoulder from my wife, me having my hand on the shoulder of my child, is the way that I look at it, to let them know, hey, I got you. There is something to that.
Yeah.
And
it's powerful.
It is so powerful. And so the things that you're talking about just resonate with me so much, because they're so true, because we watch it happen and we watch it work, but then we walk away from it and we go back to our isolated.
This will help you understand how powerful it is. Because what we're really talking about is non-sexual touching.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, if someone were to non-sexual touch you that you did not trust, that you had some hesitancy towards, how would it affect you?
I mean, I would jump back.
That's how powerful.
Yeah.
So if that's how powerful it is, right, it also works in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you do receive it from someone that you love and you know they love you,
Mhm.
it is powerful.
Yeah. For
It is
sure.
powerful because on the other end, it's a repellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But on the other end, so again, holding hands,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, you probably remember when that person that you're married to now, the first time y'all touched just pinkies.
Yeah.
Like what happened?
Yeah.
Like, whew.
Or
Yeah.
fireworks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's oxytocin.
Yeah.
And it is something that we all need.
Yeah.
Right. It
Right.
is.
And we can't get it from this thing.
No.
Yeah.
No, because again, the brain doesn't necessarily know.
Right.
Right. But when it comes to actually experiencing, again, I get to the end of the video game and I've leveled up, right? And my brain thinks, wow, that was awesome. You're incredible, right? But the problem is I turn the game off and what do I have?
That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So good, Tommy. Thank you so much.
Well, and in saying this, we're not perfect at all.
No, clearly.
So we all have hours that we could put our phones down and spend time with each other. So let me just encourage you guys to do that.
When it's so bad that countries around the world are banning, because again, it's not a phone.
Yeah.
It's a computer that also makes phone calls.
Right.
Other countries are going, we now see this is bad for our people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yep. And thanks for watching. Man, there's been some great things that were said today. So if something resonated with you, would you just shoot us a message, leave a comment, subscribe, like, let us interact with you. We're in this all together. We want your home team to win. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Man, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing us ramble about youth sports or other strangely interesting sports topics related to families, please go and like and subscribe to the show so that you can get regular updates when a new podcast is released. We'd also love to connect with you. Head on over to our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We're under LC Sports and Recreation.
And if you're new to our podcast, go check out some of our previous episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. There's some good stuff on there. And pay attention because these come out pretty quickly, weekly, as a matter of fact. And you're going to learn a lot about what we have to say with regards to our league and how to win with the home team.